All right, hell no, Cuomo. After the governor's crackdown on firearms, New Yorkers are just fired up. Thousands marching in Albany today against the new law on gun control. Governor Cuomo saying that an exemption for movie and TV showmakers is in the works. So they're wondering, how exactly does that work? Tamara Holder and Kayleigh McEnany battling this one out. Kelly, what do you make of this?
You know, I find it reprehensible that Governor Cuomo would allow the entertainment industry to put more violence on our televisions, in front of our children, in our homes. And, you know, the facts are there. Adam Lanza, authorities said he was motivated by video games. He was acting out this fantasy. James Holmes, he allegedly said to authorities, ABC News reported when he came out, "I am the Joker from Dark Knight Rises." So the fact that Andrew Cuomo would placate his leftist, liberal Hollywood donors for the 2016 presidential race at the expense of potentially American lives is disconcerting to me.
He might also be acting as a governor who wants the business, right? I mean, if I can, what we should say is he wants to allow guns, and even the ones that are in question or to be taken off the streets, at least allowed featured in Hollywood films. That might be filmed in New York. Obviously, a quest for keeping jobs in New York. But what do you make of the whole thing?
Well, what's disconcerting to me is that we're blaming Hollywood for, number one, the killings that are going on and mental health issues, and that's not the debate for today, but we're mixing apples and oranges. The issue is that there is a law, and governors are legally allowed to put in exceptions to the law, which, as you brought up, has to do with bringing Hollywood business into the cities. This is very common in the state where I came from, in Chicago. There were lots of exemptions for Hollywood producers and makers to come into town and not have such a high tax burden because they bring in workers into the city.
You let them do whatever the hell they want?
No, then that's not what they're doing here in this instance. It's just an exception to the gun law. That if
they're featuring a lot of the very guns that the governor wants New Yorkers to get off the street.
But that's an issue that you have with Hollywood. That's an issue with the producers and the makers of the movies.
That's why it sounds a little hypocritical, right?
Well, no. If you have a public perception issue with Hollywood, then you must take it up with them. But the governor's simply saying, here is an exception for your script, whatever's in it.
Okay. Well, Kayleigh, you could flip that around and just say, well, you know what's weird about this is the New Yorkers are making a big stink because it's Hollywood, it's made up, it's pretend. But your argument is, pretend or not, a lot of people take it seriously, and a lot of those very same New Yorkers who are of that vulnerable psychological makeup would go on a spree based on what they saw.
Absolutely.
Courtesy a movie filmed in New York featuring these guns.
Absolutely, Neil. And Tamara, just because you're allowed to do something, that doesn't make it right. It is undeniable that these movies, the violence we see on our televisions, is a contributing factor to what we see happening in these.
Do you have any statistics of that?
Yeah,
Do you have any statistics that prove that it's a contributing factor?
I have the fact that James Holmes said, "I am the Joker from Dark Knight Rising."
That's
he thought he was the
crazy.
Joker.
That doesn't mean that it's a contributing factor to people's violent behavior.
He dyed his hair orange to be the Joker.
Because he was crazy.
And authorities came out and said, point blank, Adam Lanza was motivated by video games. He was motivated. He was acting out a real-life fantasy. But what I would advise Governor Cuomo...
So your view would be all or nothing, right? I mean, I could see... I don't know why the governor made the exemption. Wouldn't it have been understood that, all right, they're filming a movie here, this wouldn't apply because it's all pretend?
Well, it is pretend, and this, from my understanding, is that it is fake bullets and real guns. So it's not like people are shooting these assault weapons through the streets and potentially harming innocent civilians walking by. There's no public safety issue here. There are two issues. The issue of protecting Hollywood and their ability to come into the city.
Has any prominent Democrat ever gone after Hollywood, though?
Well,
no,
I don't think so.
No, because that's their donors, that's their base. But you know what, Neil, what Governor Cuomo needs to do is step back and look at the facts. The facts are, before passing the nation's strictest gun laws, New York had the 4th strictest gun laws. Even so, they were in the top 10 top 10 states for violent homicides by firearms. So how do you explain that?
But that has nothing to do with Hollywood. That has nothing to do with movie makers coming here, bringing in jobs.
Hollywood's a contributing factor, but what this does have to do with is that if he really had the best interests of New York in mind, he'd step back and he'd look at the undeniable data that what he is doing to the city with these strict gun laws is inexcusable.
But how is your data matching up with bringing in...
Well, you're all for consistency, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, if you're going to forbid for New Yorkers, forbid for everyone.
But
Fake movies or not.
They're not using the guns They're not possessing the guns, like you said, in real life. This is pretend. This is movie. And any person to dress up and dye their hair and go in and claim that they're one person.
But if you mean what you say about cracking down on gun violence in your state,
right,
then every way, shape, or form those guns are exhibited, fake or not, paper or not, print or film, you are like a laser beam. No.
So you think that the governor should say, you're not allowed to film any movies here that are violent, that contain any depiction of guns?
If that's going to, if you're going to espouse take guns off the street strategy, then you've got to be consistent to it. It's like you can't be a little bit pregnant. You either are or you're not.
I'm not.
Okay, good. You know?
We shove these movies in front of our children's faces, and sociologists... Parents do, but we shouldn't make it easier for these movies to film. He shouldn't exempt Hollywood.
But you're against what he's doing to rein in guns, period, among New Yorkers.
Absolutely.
Well, see, then you could be deemed just as crazy, right?
I don't think so, because if you look at Switzerland, Israel, Finland, New Zealand, you name it, these
I know what you're saying, and I understand it, but I'm just saying, if you have a problem with the way violence is portrayed in movies, but the same weapons in real life are used with real bullets and doing real harm on the streets, shouldn't you be against that as well?
They're not portrayed as heroic. In The Dark Knight Rising, the hero has a gun.
No, but they're same weapons. One is fake, one is real.
Right, but the heroes still have the guns. The heroes have the guns, and they're portrayed in a heroic fashion. If you go out in the streets of New York and you shoot someone, you're not portrayed as a hero. You're portrayed as a criminal, as you should. We shouldn't.
Real quick,
I just don't understand. I feel like this has turned into a moral argument when this is supposed to be a legal debate as to whether there's
no morals. So don't worry about that. No, ladies, I wish we had more time, but it is interesting. So I don't know. I'm pretty black and white on this stuff. Either you're for entirely or you're against entirely. No ifs, ands, or buts, like the kids. When I say it's bedtime. All right.